for now. Um, okay. Everyone can see the PowerPoint, right? Is that what everybody sees? Okay, great. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Master of Science in Mental Health Counseling here at UAlbany. So I'm going to do an overview of the program, answer some frequently asked questions, and then there will also be time to address any questions that were submitted. I will say that I did check the submitted questions this morning. So if you did submit a question a little bit later in the morning or early this afternoon, I might not have gotten it, but there is also time to ask your questions. You can feel free to shout those out at the end. I also don't mind being interrupted, so feel free to shout them out while I'm talking. But there's also time to enter them in the chat as well, either when they pop into your mind or at the end. So my name is Alyssa Yesko. I am the director of the Pathways into Education Center, or the PI Center here at UAlbany. Our office advises on all of the graduate programs. We work with teacher certification. We advise our education minors. We're kind of a one-stop shop for the School of Education. I also have here with us two students from the mental health counseling program who work in my office as graduate assistants. So they have joined us today in case you have any questions from a student's perspective. So I'm just going to have them quickly introduce themselves as well.
Hi guys, my name is Jamie. Like Alyssa said, I'm in the MS Mental Health Counseling program here at UAlbany. I'm in my last year, so very exciting. Yeah, it's a great program.
Hi, my name is Marissa. I am also in the program, graduating in December. So if you have any questions, Jamie and I will both be happy to help you.
Thank you both very much. Okay, so for those of you who are thinking of entering the program, why work in the mental health field? I'm sure you've thought about some of these things before, but just to kind of go over some of the benefits to yourself and also to others for working in this field. You're involved in a helping profession, right? That one's pretty obvious, but you know that you're making an impact in other people's lives. So it's a very rewarding career field. You also have the ability to develop your own identity as a counselor. So like all counselors are different in the way that they approach things and the way, and the skills that they use. You're sort of able to become, come into your own as a professional. You are able to help people learn to make healthy decisions about themselves, their relationships, their futures, guiding people through those processes. You can also work where you want. That's another great thing. So we'll talk a little bit about licensure in New York State. This program leads to licensure in New York State, but there is the possibility to apply for licensure in other states. But wherever you work, you're giving back to the people that you're working with. And further, each day that you're working will be totally different. So it's an ever-changing field. It's an exciting field to work in. And you will continue to learn and grow in your profession throughout your entire career. So when we're looking at the program itself, the program is accredited by the Masters in Psychology and Counseling Accreditation Council, sorry. And we're also approved by New York State Office of Professions to prepare our students for licensure. The program involves targeted coursework in behavioral science and counseling theory and practice, combined with practical experiences in counseling settings. So that's a huge part of our program, where you're able to use what you're learning in the classroom in clinical settings. And you learn to guide others in their personal growth and employ therapeutic methods to remediate conflict. The program itself is a 60 credit program. Those 60 credits do include your field experiences. So it's a pretty heavy credit load, but you're also thinking about the fact that when you are when you're completing your field experiences, you're earning credit for that. There are core courses in the behavioral sciences, counseling theory and practice. You are able to take some electives, so maybe some things that you are interested in. And then you have your field experience, which involves a semester of pre-practicum, your practicum, and then your full-time internship. All students also complete a mandated child abuse reporting training and a comprehensive exam. I am going to have Dr. Jason Gallo introduce himself. He's just joined us. He is the director of the program. So I'm just going to give him a minute to just say hey and introduce himself.
So, hey, everybody. I apologize for being a little bit late. I was having some technical issues getting into Zoom, but I'm glad everyone's here getting information. Alyssa is very knowledgeable on the program and knows all the details. So it's great to connect with her and have her, start giving the presentation on it. The details she's laying out for you through the PowerPoint. But if anyone has questions that aren't answered in the PowerPoint or have a specific situation or a different kind of situation as they're considering applying, feel free to reach out to myself or Alyssa, and we can get answers for just about we'll find the answers or provide answers for anything. One quick thing, I'm not sure if it will be in the PowerPoint, but I'm getting a lot of questions regarding it as people are getting ready to apply for this cycle. We are still requiring the general GRE. So that is a requirement, and that's not something that can be waived. So that's a common question right now for people who are beginning the application process for this year. So, any other questions, shoot it in the chat as we're on this, or feel free to email after. And yeah, back to you, Alyssa. Go ahead. Thank
you.
Sure.
I wanted to I'm not going to read these off to you guys, but just so that you have an idea of the types of courses that you may be taking, up front, all of these bulleted courses, these are the required courses. And like I mentioned, you're also able to take electives, and that your field experience does count for credit. But I just wanted to give people an idea of the types of courses that you might be taking in this program. So like I said, I won't read them all, but I just wanted you guys to know. If there's anyone here who is a UAlbany student who's interested in the combined program option, I just wanted to mention that. So this is a program pathway that's open to our human development and psychology majors. It allows you to apply to the program as a junior and start taking graduate level coursework as a senior. And you're able to take up to 12 credits of graduate coursework while you're still working on your undergraduate degree. It doesn't shorten the time to graduation in the program, in the master's program, but it does lighten your course load throughout and allows you to save some money. So it's a lot of benefits. If there are any UAlbany students who wanted to connect with me to talk about what this pathway looks like for you, I'm happy to do it. So some frequently asked questions. How long does the program take? The program takes about 18 months and begins in the summer, usually in late May or early June, depending on when the first course is offered, which summer session. Students also typically graduate in December of the following year. So when you're thinking about it in semesters, so you're going straight through. So it's summer, fall, spring, summer, fall. So that's what the program would look like for most students. Can the program be done part-time is another question that we get pretty often. The program is meant to be completed full-time. We do not typically accept part-time students, and I don't believe that there have been students that have completed the program as a part-time student. This is mostly because when you get to the clinical component, full-time is the only option. And you do enter this program as a cohort. It's a cohort-based model, which I think is really a wonderful thing because you sort of have a built-in support system with your cohort. You're all moving through it at the same pace, at the same time. And so it's meant to be started in the summer. It's meant to be completed in a given amount of time. People also ask if it's possible to work during the program. It can be extremely difficult, particularly if you are hoping to hold full-time employment. That becomes really difficult. You are in your clinical setting several hours a week, typically during work hours. We can't guarantee that courses might not be offered during the day, during typical work hours. So generally, no, the program is not to be completed part-time, and working can be extremely difficult and is it's recommended not to. Are there any prerequisites for the program? So you do not need to be a psychology major. Some other programs do require that you have a major or a background in psychology. Our program does not have that requirement, but we do require 15 credits of psychology, including statistics. If you took a statistics course that was not a psychology statistics course, that's okay. Those typically count toward the prerequisite requirement. If you haven't taken a statistics course, a psychology statistics course may be helpful because it sort of jives really well with some of the things you'll be learning in your classroom. Also an abnormal psych course, and then courses focused on personality theory and development. A GPA above 3.0 is highly recommended. There is a higher GPA requirement for combined program students. I believe across the university, there's a 3.2 minimum GPA requirement for any student going into a combined program, but I believe a 3.5 is preferred for this program if you're applying through the combined route. Research experience is not mandatory, but it's certainly helpful. So if you are still an undergraduate student and have opportunities to participate in some research, certainly it certainly doesn't hurt your application. How many students are admitted each year? Typical cohorts are around 25 to 30 students. We have data from the 2019-2020 school year. There were 63 applicants, 40 students accepted, and 37 students enrolled. So definitely a cohort on the larger side that year. Dr. Gala, how many students are in this year's cohort? Do you happen to know offhand?
Yeah, so this year we have 36 began the first year cohort. Couple came in deciding to go part-time. Most students when they apply are going to plan on taking the full-time path, but if personal reasons or things come up, they can shift to that part-time possibility that we would discuss kind of on an individual basis. There isn't a clear part-time path through, but typically we hope to bring in somewhere in the mid-30s, low to mid-30s for each cohort usually, and then you're going to go with that group of students for most of the courses as you progress through the program.
Thank you. Some students are already looking ahead to the possibility of doctoral studies. So is there a connection to the PhD in counseling psychology here at UAlbany? There is some overlapping coursework, and certainly some master's graduates have applied to and been admitted to our department's PhD program, but there's not a direct link. It's not like, you finish the MS in mental health counseling and you go right into the PhD in counseling and continue on seamlessly. So it's certainly possible. And we've had lots of students from our master's program go on to both our program, but also other PhD programs outside of UAlbany at other institutions. So it's certainly a possible pathway. Can I transfer previous graduate courses in? Yes. We offer a pretty generous transfer policy for applicable coursework. So you can transfer in up to 29 credits of graduate psychology coursework that align with our program. So I think that that's the thing to emphasize, right? It's not just any graduate credit that you can use. It has to be something that fits in with our program that you can justify either a direct match with the required courses, or that you can justify that it supports your degree for the possibility of transferring in some of those elective credits. This is something that you would work with an advisor on determining once you are accepted. So we don't typically do transcript evaluations prior to a student being admitted. So this is something you would work with your advisor on. In what ways can I fund my graduate studies? So there are university-wide scholarships for graduate students. There are also School of Education specific scholarships. So I like to point out that that's a much smaller pool of students that you would be applying with than the university-wide scholarships. There are even some that are designated to certain fields. So we may have scholarships that are particular to those who are planning to enter the counseling field, those who enter the teaching field. So there may be a smaller pool in some of those options. Those are tuition assistance. They don't cover full tuition. They're donor based, but they are offered every year and students are eligible to apply each year more than once. The Office of Financial Aid is the best place to ask about questions, tuitions, fees, aid, payment plans. Not my area of expertise, so I don't like to give, I give, some general guidance to students, but I would much prefer that people reach out there. Okay, so why our program? The program focuses on supervision, multiculturalism, and our monitoring of in-session behaviors to enhance professional development. So students are learning from real life experiences. And kind of coupled with that, something that's really wonderful about our program is that you do not have to worry about finding your own placements for your practicum and your internship. Our program director has wonderful relationships with lots of different sites and agencies where our students have completed their hours. And those hours have been done in a full range of mental health services and agencies, so community-based agencies, schools, lots of different places. Our faculty have a wide range of expertise in the field, and they're contributors to our field. So they are not only teaching our students, but they're actively engaged either in their own practice or in research to contribute back to the field. And then we have a comprehensive yet accelerated curriculum and pathway. Like I mentioned, our program is an 18-month program. Many other counseling programs are 2-year programs. And so when our students are graduating in December, they may be entering the job market a little bit earlier than some of the students who might be graduating several months later in May. So just some information for applicants. Required application materials are transcripts from all the schools that you've attended, 3 letters of recommendation, those 15 credits of psychology that I talked about, your statement of background and goals, and your GRE scores. Like Dr. Gallo mentioned, those are the general that's the general GRE exam, not the psychology GRE exam. So just want to make sure that that's clear. And the deadline is December 15th. Students are then, I believe, contacted for interviews. Is that correct after that? Yes, and then decisions are then made after the interviews. Where
Right,
to
so-
find, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just clarify a little bit. So applications due December 15th. As I said in the chat answer, things like GRE scores, recommendation letters can come after the application has been submitted on December 15th. But without the December 5th, the application and the fee have to be paid by December 15th, or we can't make exceptions after that date. The supporting stuff can come after, but we typically need that by the end of December, first week of January, because we want to complete the application review by mid-January. And then we do the interviews either end of January, beginning of February in those few weeks. And then because we have to make our decisions, we like to have the incoming, because it's a summer start, our admissions decisions need to come a little quicker than maybe some programs that have a fall start.
Thanks. I have some QR codes to some pages you all may have already visited. The program page, which is basically just the website for the MS in mental health counseling. That's where you can find the application requirements, deadlines, facts about the program, information. I have our main web page for the School of Education also linked up there. And then I have Dr. Gallo's email, and then the graduate school email. So the graduate school is the name of our graduate admissions office. And so any admissions related questions, any technical aspects of the online application, they're the best place to ask those questions. And then of course the PI Center, like I mentioned, that's my office. We provide information to our prospective students, so that's you guys, answer questions about the program, things that go beyond what you might find right on the website. So if you have questions beyond those, not only can you get them answered here today in this information session, but also by emailing the PI Center, giving us a call, or stopping into our Zoom hours. So we have virtual open hours. Basically, you click the link during the hours that we have listed on our website, and you can join the chat and be able to have a conversation with someone. So, it's a great feature that sort of allows us to, share our screen with you and be able to sort of engage in a way that email doesn't always allow. So definitely encourage you to use those hours. These were some of the questions that were submitted. And so I think some of these, Dr. Gallo, I think these would be great questions for you to answer. So the first question is some of them I may have already answered, but so how important is research experience when applying?
So research experience when applying for the master's program is not important at all. It is something that we would look at like we would any other applicant in terms of experiences or prior experience they have. So it can be a strength, but it's not an expectation. Research is not required for the master's program either. We have a research methods class, but the research at the master's level in our division is more thought of as people knowing how to consume research, read articles in order to inform their mental health work. Research experience itself is more required for the doctoral program.
Thank you. What are some possible career paths?
So some possible career paths are, there's a wide range of, most people are going to become a licensed mental health counselor that get our master's degree. The license, and I'll talk about the license a little bit because that looks like the second bullet as well. So there's the licensed mental health counselor in New York State requires 3 pieces. You have to get a master's in mental health counseling. So that's what we would provide. And we're a New York State registered program. So if you complete our master's degree, New York State also already recognizes you as completed the academic part towards licensure. Then you need to do 3,000 post-degree work hours and then complete the licensing exam. So a lot of people can think, if you think of it from like a medical residency, is similar to what the post-degree hours would be. So any profession out there, has that piece, that experiential piece. And those are usually your entry-level positions out in the field. So in terms of career paths, I mean, people with licensed mental health counselor can work it with kids, can work in hospital settings, school settings, chemical dependency settings, inpatient treatment settings. So really it's a wide range wherever mental health issues are something that's relevant for that setting, you're going to find potentially licensed mental health counselors working there.
I've also known some graduates, actually some that even worked in this office, who have done some like virtual therapy.
Sure.
Which
Yeah,
has been a
remote.
really kind of like cool new area that some
Yep.
of our graduates have worked in. So just kind of want to mention that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot, there's a huge growth in telemental health treatment right now. And that's, with mental health, licensed mental health counselors would be one of the professions that would be providing that kind of, therapy out there, as well as psychologists, psychiatry. But in general, the field seems to be expanding towards telehealth based stuff. So a lot of, and then we've had students who also that don't get the license and use the master's degree to go on to doctoral programs or maybe health policy programs or higher education programs. So it's not purely to, you don't have to become a licensed mental health counselor with our master's degree. The mental health counseling background can help you in other areas as well if you wanted to. So the difference between, this is a good question. The licensed social worker is a license that's been around much longer than the licensed mental health counselor. There's a lot of jobs that both licensed mental health counselors and licensed social workers can do. If you're interested in the possibility of having a wide range of jobs that would include things like case management, working like in social service kind of programs, or maybe doing therapy, that would be the social work program would be a better choice for that. Licensed mental health counselor and the mental health counseling program is really just focused on the mental health counseling side of it, where social work has a wider range of possibilities. There's a case management component of it and things like that. So if you are purely looking to get trained in mental health counseling, the mental health counseling master's program is more directed towards that, where the social work program and the social work license has a wider variety of types of jobs people can go into. Salary expectations, it really depends on what type of agency you want to go work for. Another area that's growing is medical facilities are beginning to have mental health offices staffed for people who come in for so if you go to Community Care has the big building out in Latham, a medical center in effect, where there's all different kinds of doctors under one roof. So you go in for your primary care, and if you check off on some checklists that you're feeling depressed or anxious, they can refer you and you can walk right down to their mental health clinic. In private agencies like that, on the medical side, we have students that are beginning in the mid-60s and salary can go upwards from there. If you're working more in a community agency-based mental health facility, those are going to start more probably in the $45,000 range. So there's a starting range probably in the 45 to 60,000 range. But if you get into leadership positions and supervisory positions, there's jobs that can go well up into the six figures. If you can, with the licensed mental health counselor, you can also get into private practice. And if you grow a huge private practice, that can also get, well above a six-figure range. But the typical starting salary is going to be in the mid 40s to 60 range. Specific coursework, I'm not sure what that would refer to beyond, the curriculum list that you can find on the program website. The coursework is going to be theory and practical based in mental health counseling. Can you pursue part-time? So there's kind of two parts that you can pursue part-time. Most people are going to go full-time. If you go part-time, so the program is an 18-month program. Our program only is able to offer the courses one time per academic year. So if you aren't able to take a course in that first offering, you would have to wait a full year to take the next offering. So if you go part-time, it's most likely going to take 36 months instead of 18 months. It's not like, excuse me, you can go part-time and be done in 2 years instead of 18 months. It typically is going to take a much longer time if you go part-time, but that is okay. The thing with working full-time is, again, because our courses are only offered once each academic year, you have to take it the time it's offered. So if you have a job that's flexible scheduling wise, you could work full-time and complete the degree. If you have a business hour job, an 8 to 4, 9 to 5 kind of job, it would be very, very difficult to complete the degree while working full-time, because you will have courses that are required courses that will meet in those timeframes. So I'm straightforward with students that apply to our program. If you need to work full-time and have a really good 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 job, we're probably not the best program to choose. There's other programs that have more flexible scheduling, have more online courses, let people kind of go on their own schedule. We are definitely more built to be kind of a continuation of an undergrad type schedule where you go full-time. There's going to be courses during the day. There's going to be homework to do. It doesn't mean we don't have students that don't go through part-time or aren't able to work their way through the program. But our scheduling is definitely more typical academic college-based scheduling. And the expectation is the students are going to be there for those courses. What GRE scores are needed? We don't have cutoff scores. We really try to look at the applicant from a full picture, and the GRE is just one component of that. Where GRE scores come a little more into play is if someone, let's say, struggled academically early on in their undergrad career and their GPA is on the lower side. We want to make sure that they have that academic aptitude to complete the master's program because it is rigorous. So the GRE scores may be more important for that person who that's a way to show us that they have the academic aptitude. Or if two people are really, really close and the only difference is the GREs, that can be a piece of information, but there's no set cutoff scores. But if you're taking practice exams and shooting for something, most of the students accepted to the program wind up in the 50th percentile or higher. But it doesn't mean if you do poorly on a GRE score, you would not be able to get in, because we also have students who, do well in other areas, but just don't test well. So their GRE scores are lower, but they still get in and do fine in the program. So there's no cutoff scores, but, usually around that 50th percentile or higher is where most of the students that get accepted land. So those are the questions I see on the PowerPoint. Do people have other questions?
Some more. Yeah. So when should you apply if you're planning to apply to the combined program?
The combined program, you need to be applied and accepted prior to beginning your last semester at the university. So if you are applying and are going to graduate in May, you would need, I want to make sure I'm saying this clearly. You don't need to apply by the beginning of the spring semester. You need to have applied, been reviewed, and been accepted before the beginning of the spring semester. It will take at least 2 months or so for that full review process to be completed and have a decision. So if you are hoping to go with a combined program to start this spring, and graduate in May, you would really need to get that application done in the next week or two. So we'd have time to review that.
And if and when possible, you can plan to be able to complete 2 semesters of incorporating graduate coursework. So let's say that you're going to be graduating, not this upcoming May, but the following May. So you would apply this upcoming spring to then take courses, to then integrate courses into your senior year in the fall and the following spring.
Correct. Yep.
Um,
And you could even apply next summer. So we would look at, combined program applications even into the summer. And yeah, the more ideal would be to have your full senior year to take some master's level courses.
This may be a good question for the students that are currently in the program, but what is the typical course schedule like? This student had seen that the Russell Sage program does nights and weekends, so that might be one of those more flexible programs that Dr. Gallo had mentioned, but maybe Marissa or Jamie, if you can talk a little bit about what your schedule has been like between your coursework and your field experiences.
I'm trying to think. So we don't typically have classes on weekends. They're usually like from like 8:40 in the morning. That's when typically our classes start. And they go until late afternoon. But no, I think we had only one night class. And then as far as like field, like incorporating our field work into our courses, I mean, your internships and like your agencies, they're pretty flexible because they know that you're a student. So they kind of work around your schedule. So it's pretty easy to kind of be flexible with courses and like your hours at your practicum and your internship. But yeah, so no crazy like night classes and weekend classes and stuff like that. It's like a pretty typical course schedule.
Next question. Thank you, Jamie. Is it an expectation that students who apply will have taken an intro to counseling course or other related course?
So I guess that's a good one for me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily an intro to counseling course, but you would need to have intro to psychology. So that was related to another question that was in the chat. And that is, hold on a second, I'm trying to get, if you are not a psych major, you need to complete 15 credits of undergrad psychology courses. One of those courses has to be Introduction to Psychology. So we would want Introduction to Psychology, Abnormal Psychology, and a statistics course. Then the other 2 courses to meet that 15 credit requirement could be pretty much any other psychology courses, but you definitely need to have that Intro to Psychology course done. So you don't need an Intro to Counseling Psychology course necessarily, but you're either going to be a psych major, which would require Intro to Psychology, or you have to take Intro to Psychology to complete the 15 credit prerequisite requirement.
So somebody asked, are the prerequisite requirements available at UAlbany? If so, which classes are they?
So they are available at UAlbany. They are Intro to Psychology, the Abnormal Psychology, a statistics course. That can be any statistics course. It doesn't have to be psych statistics. And then any other 2 psychology courses. If you are not already at UAlbany taking those courses and preparing to apply, you can take those prerequisites anywhere. So my advice would be, if you have a major in a different course or in a different area, but want to apply, I would find the least expensive, most efficient and easiest way for you to complete those 15 credits at a community college, junior college, some online school. It doesn't matter where those are taken. They just need to be done because we're looking for a foundation in psychology. We're not looking for credits from a specific place. We're just looking for that. So if you had, let's say you were a biology major, realize I don't want to go to med school, I want to go into mental health counseling. All we're looking for at that point, from the application standpoint and those prerequisites, is to make sure you have a foundational understanding of psychology. So it doesn't matter that they weren't part of your undergrad degree. It doesn't matter that you took them at a university like UAlbany. They are purely for that psychology foundation piece, so they can be completed anywhere. And that's where I would advise, find the least expensive, easiest way for you to get those done and to get that foundation.
Thank you. When is the earliest day or month that an individual might receive acceptance letters?
So the earliest would be mid-February. Most likely end of February, beginning of March will be the first round of acceptances that go out. So that if you apply, I kind of go through, because this question comes up in a lot of different ways. So our review and application process, December 15th applications are due. We begin the review, but by beginning of January, we want to review all the applications. You will either be invited for an interview or be rejected. So the first review is of the applications, and it's an invite to an interview or denied from the program. If you're invited to the interview, then there's 3 possible things that are going to come out of the interview process. There's going to be acceptance, rejection, and waitlist. We try to let people know those answers by end of February, beginning of March. If you wind up on the wait list, sometimes we hold out, a spot could open up as late as mid-May, right before the program starts, but we obviously ask the applicant if they want to remain on the wait list that long. But we've had people get into the program right before the program starts. They've waited on the wait list for a little bit. Someone has to withdraw their acceptance at the end, and spots have opened up. So, it's the earliest you would know is the end of February, but for some people, it kind of, the process goes through the whole spring.
For students who are pursuing the combined program, if they are completing their undergraduate in December, so if they're going to be a fall graduate, since the program itself doesn't start until the summer, what do they do for the spring semester?
So they would have options occasionally, but not frequently. A student would take some classes in the spring. So if you get into the combined program, the university converts you to a master's student as soon as you complete your undergrad degree. The issue with starting in the spring would be that there's not a lot of coursework for you to take. And there's a double issue with that. If you take a bunch of the courses that spring, there wouldn't be a lot for you to take the following spring when you're a full-time master's student. Many students need to maintain full-time status in the master's program, whether it's for loans or assistantships or a variety of reasons. If you take too many of the classes up front and there aren't classes for you to take once you're in the master's program, it's harder to keep that full-time status, or it can be harder to keep the full-time status. So if there isn't an overwhelming reason to begin in the spring, I would advise a student that's accepted to the combined program that graduates in December to start in the summer with the rest of the incoming cohort. But if someone was graduating in December and did want to take some courses in the spring, as a combined student, you would have that option. Typical master's application process, that option doesn't occur. Those students can't start until the summer. Combined program students that graduate in December have the opportunity to take some classes in the spring if they would want to. But that would be something we would talk about individually, kind of your situation. It's not the typical way, but it would be a possibility if somebody wanted to do that or had reasons to do that, and we would discuss that, meaning me and that person individually.
If I attended UAlbany as an undergrad and I graduated, do you still need my transcripts on my application? The answer is no.
No, the university has those, I believe.
Yes, but the only thing is, if you had attended any other institutions, even if those courses from other institutions were transferred to UAlbany, you do need transcripts from those other institutions. So if you took classes anywhere else for any reason, they should be part of your application. How much of an impact does the GRE score have on the acceptance compared to one transcript? Say you have a GPA of 3.8, but don't do well on the GRE. How does that play into consideration?
So if you do really well academically in your undergrad program and you get very strong letters of recommendation and you write a strong personal statement, but don't do as well on the GRE is not going to be the thing that holds you back or keeps you out of the master's program. The GRE is more for, it's one of the pieces of information that of all those things I just, kind of mentioned. But if someone doesn't have a strong GPA, honestly, the other pieces are going to be play a bigger role. Your undergrad achievement, your undergrad GPA is going to be bigger than the GRE score. But like I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you do poorly on it, in undergrad for a reason, and you're able to explain that in your personal statement, and then the GRE shows that you have a high academic aptitude, it gives us something to try to weigh out what this, how that person might match up as a applicant. But if you do well in all other pieces and do poorly on the GRE, that's the scenario where the GRE probably has the least impact on the decision for that student. It's more when students are very close in other areas, or the GRE actually shows us something because the person does well in the GRE and other things aren't as strong. We'd almost think of it like a scale. And if you put enough things on the scale, no one thing on the other side is going to have a big impact. But if everything's kind of checking out even, every one thing is going to have bigger impact. But if you have strong GPA, really strong recommendations, write a great personal statement, but don't do as well in the GRE as you'd hope, it's not going to hold you back.
Thank you. There were no other questions in the chat. Does anyone else have any additional questions that they want to ask while we still have a few minutes left? You can feel free to shout them out or, type them up in the chat. I'm also going to put in the chat the Pi Center email address in case anybody wanted to shoot us an email after this if a question pops into your mind. But yeah, if there are no other questions, I just wanted to say thank you for spending a little time with us this afternoon to learn about the program. I hope to see, classes typically start at 8 a.m. to late afternoon. So how many times a week do we have courses? It's a good question.
So the best way I answer questions, I actually was writing an email and I see the name of the person on this. So I kind of talk the coursework and the schedule because it's getting tougher and tougher for people to not work and go to school. So I'll say that sounds backwards or flip-flop, but what I mean by that is 5 years ago, most people just came to school for full-time and were not trying to work outside. They were just focused on school. So our master's program has traditionally been built around that notion that the student's going to come full-time. They're not going to have outside distractions. They're just focused on their schoolwork. They're not working. They're not doing these other things. But life is a lot different now than it was 5 to 10 years ago. So more and more people are trying to balance those multiple pieces. In general, the thing with school versus with trying to work your way through it is that we could have a course this semester that is meeting. So I'll just bring up a course. And I don't know if this isn't the time it is, but I'll just throw out our intro to theories course, which is a required course, could meet this fall at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays. The next time it's going to be offered is next fall. It could meet 7 o'clock on Thursdays next fall. There's no predictive ability of what our schedule is going to be from one semester to the next. There could be a semester that it just turns out almost every course is in the evening. The next semester, almost every course could meet at 8 a.m. So there really is not it's really difficult to predict or base the decision on coming to our master's program based on schedule, because our schedule changes semester to semester and it can be all over the board. So to work and complete our master's degree, work has to be flexible. You have to have the kind of job, you'll know a semester in advance, meaning you would know right now when your courses are going to meet in the spring. So if you have a job where you can, a few months in advance, let your supervisors know, hey, I'm going to have courses these times. So I'm going to need Tuesday mornings off, Thursday afternoons, one of the courses in the evening, so I don't have to worry about that one. As long as you can have a few months in advance and your work can accommodate that, then you be able to work easily through the master's program. If you have a set work schedule, it can be very difficult to complete the master's program in addition to that, because the courses are only going to be offered that one time. So it is a tough juggle. I just flat out understand and admit that it's a tough juggle to work your way through our master's program. Doesn't mean it's not doable. It doesn't mean people don't do it every single year, but it is a tough juggle, and you have to accept if you get offered and want to accept our master's program, you have to come with the full understanding. The number one priority in my schedule for the next 18 months is the courses at the time they're scheduled. Because if you also come, and students get into these issues every year, they come in and say, well, I can't, they miss 3 or 4 courses. Our faculty, if you the attendance is expected and is a big part of passing courses. It's not like undergrad where you sit in a classroom of 300 people, where if you can get the studying done, get the notes, and take the exam, you can get through without sometimes being at a ton of the courses in person. This is 30 people in a classroom that the faculty is hand chosen to get into the master's program. We know who you are. We pay attention to who's there and who's not. And many of the syllabi and courses are written in a way that if you miss courses, you can't pass it. Miss the classes, you can't pass it. So it is tough to juggle both. Doesn't mean it's not doable, but if you really have to have a work schedule because you have a job you don't want to lose and have to keep it in place, we're not the best program for that situation for people. I just like to be straightforward and honest up front, because I really want to see people succeed in their master's program, whichever one they choose. And we are definitely still built in a way that is more, we expect more of a focus and priority on the classroom time. We don't have a lot of online classes yet. That's another example compared to other programs. So it's going to be 3 or 4 days a week, chunks of time, whether it's a morning time or an afternoon time, that the expectation is going to, be that you're going to be in a classroom. I think that kind of gets also
Yeah. One of the questions was about like how the courses are offered. A large majority of classes, if not all classes, are 3 hours once a week. That's correct, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do students have the option to create their own schedule, or does the department make the schedule for them?
Schedule will be set. Like, for example, we have 4 courses that the students that are going into the second year in their spring, there's 4 required courses they have to take. If you're going to go full time, you have to take them at those 4 time slots. There's not much flexibility with our courses. So how did the program handle? So
COVID absence.
Yeah, and I won't even just say COVID. Any personal issue absence, we try to work with the student. Obviously COVID is the one that's
mandated,
common or on everybody's minds these last 2 years. But really any personal issue, we try to work with the student to help them continue to complete. The program, it's not even the program, but that class. So COVID, for example, we've had students who have had COVID. We've worked with them. They've been able to continue and get through and finish the classes that semester. And we've had students who've wound up with situations with COVID that have made the decision to withdraw from classes that semester and then pick back up. So it really, we work with the student to try to figure out, but that's really any personal issue, that comes up for a student, whether it's COVID, a different illness, other kind of things that can go on for people. We try to help figure out if there's a way for them to continue in the courses they're in that semester, or if it makes sense to withdraw from the courses and pick up fresh the following semester. If I had a professor, but that for no longer teaches at the university, would that be considered? Yeah, so for recommendations, so someone else asked about recommendations. We would like at least 2 to be academic based. It can be recent or prior courses. The third one can be academic based, but the third one could be job supervisor or something else if you can't get that academic based one, or all 3. So for in terms of this question where the person is no longer working, we're more interested in that individual's recommendation of you with that experience of you as a student, not what their present job is. So the recommendations really are more based on people that can speak to your academic ability, your work ability, those kind of things, not necessarily if they're still working at that university. So former professor that's now retired or not working in that capacity could still count as an academic recommendation.
We have had some great questions.
Yeah.
These are all like wonderful questions to ask. Yeah, I guess, I mean, we're coming up on the end of our hour, so I'll wrap it up here, but just know that we are available to answer any further questions that you may have as you're working on your application or going through the process. And like I said before, thank you for taking the time to learn more about the program. We hope that this was a helpful session. We hope to see some of your names come through as applicants. And yeah, so thank you all very much and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Gallo.
Sure. Thanks, Alyssa.